Wisconsin had more votes, period, full stop, than registered voters. Okay, the actual quote. At the beginning of the month, Wisconsin had this many registered voters. X number of days later, it had this many votes. Oh, you weren't told that. Tiny hands. So, what happened? Wisconsin allows you to register to vote on the day you vote as long as it goes through. It's sort of like an instant background check for getting a gun. You have to do the same stuff. You have to show an ID and everything. It's about the same as showing up with an ID, registering, and then voting immediately, which a lot of them did. They registered to vote and then voted. The easiest way to do that, and the fastest way, if you're not aware of it, is to have previously voted in another election and not be a first-time, registered to vote, but you can do it. Many states allow that because they don't feel a need to prevent people from voting. If you would pass anyway, there's no background check or anything. It really isn't. So the idea that Wisconsin had more votes on this day than potential voters on this day is because more people registered to vote in the intervening days. Not just on the day of the vote, by the way. In spite of the apparently really heavy-duty efforts by a Trump appointee in the mail system, there was also mail-in ballots, a lot of them, because of COVID-19. It's safer. But this is what some of the states did. The states said that they were going to process immediately every single in-person ballot as an inducement to get people to show up, and then afterwards process all the mail-in, because the mail-in ballots are sitting there in buckets. The effort is in collecting them, and it's always this way every election. On election day, it's a large effort to get them in because there's a time limit. If you do mail-in ballots, the time limit is on the same day, but at a certain time, they just stop accepting any ballots as postmarked. It's easier to make a cutoff point. But when people are in line, I don't know if you understand this, in many states, if you're in line to vote, it doesn't matter if you artificially escalate things to where the line is 2 miles long. If you're in a line and it's an unbroken line and the poll watchers couldn't knock you loose, like a football game, they have to let you complete the process because you showed up in good faith and just weren't at the head of the line. And a couple of states decided, because this was a big problem, that they were going to extend the number of days, because if you're not aware of this, we haven't always had an instant outcome. I don't think it's a Flintstones universe with TV sets and squawking, birds for radios. In the past, in the before time, Pony Express days, it took weeks to collect all the votes or have them counted at location. At one point, you had to send the ballots into only one location per whatever. Then they decided, let's do districts. So that's where this comes from. The idea is to center that. And I want to point out that in some counties, even though there could be lots and lots of people, Republicans went out of their way, and it was just the Republicans, to force fuck the situation to where there were some counties where there was one ballot box. So people literally just mailed in their ballots because that's the only option they had, because mechanically they couldn't get to the damn ballot box. There's a line for 7 blocks. They said, screw it, I can just mail it in, because they could. So they did. They got an envelope and all that kind of stuff and just mailed it in. The mail will eventually visit it. Will deliver it. And again, Trump appointee tried to slow it down enough that almost, probably up to 10% of your ballots were ignored if you mailed them in. And in some states, he told people to mail in ballots that were Republican. That's about 50% of the population. And he's complaining now that he's not seeing his mail-in ballots show up. Guess what they did in that state that's different than the others? They processed them as they got them in so there wouldn't be a big rush at the end of the day. That's why their polls closed with the numbers being available. They counted every ballot as soon as they got a hold of them. But other states decided as an inducement they would delay counting the mail-in ballots, mostly because they don't have to mess with them. They can work at getting their shit straight first. Every state does it differently, and every one of you that screams that you want everything a certain way, you have to live in that state to have a voice, because they decide how they do their vote. And a lot of you complained when states did their votes a, a different way back in 2016? Well, some of you loved the way that they were different because it worked to your advantage. People only complain about things that don't work to their advantage. I want everything based on popular vote. I want everyone to use a mail-in ballot by default and only do a show up to the polling place when needed. And I want all ballots counted as they come in, but not revealed as information so it doesn't affect people's desire to vote. And I want everyone to stop talking at exit polls. Stop telling people how you're voting. Let it be a complete surprise at the end of the day. At the election day, at midnight, we should have had all this information. And if people didn't go out of their way to screw up the mail system, that would be Trump and the Republican Party. If people didn't go out of their way to make this convoluted system we have that I don't care if it's more fair with the Electoral College, it makes it more irritating. The popular vote says that Trump lost. You don't like it. You didn't like it when he won. He lost the popular vote. And I don't think that'd be more fair. But anyway, I love seeing Trump lose. It's my daily medicine. That's trending on Twitter as a response to Trump. The next one is, that's it. That seals the deal. I've been an American citizen for years, and in all my time of being one, I've never seen an election this bad. I've had enough of it. Until you fix this country, I'll be packing my bags to insert name of country. A lot of them are naming Alaska because, that's funny. Some people are on Twitter making fun of Donald Trump blowing a literal gasket. I don't know if he's going to make it because he might pop. And they're having fun posting interesting memes. Some of them are even non-pornographic. He's losing his shit because he's losing. Places where he's winning, they're still counting ballots because, I'm sorry, if you make it to where that not only COVID-19, but your attempts at preventing people from being able to vote just slow it down, you have nobody to blame but yourself. And then he has one tweet. Why is every time they open mail-in ballots so devastating and depressing? Because people are voting you out of office and you don't like it. But really, it's just COVID-19 that started most of this. And we have learned from this mistake. And it doesn't matter how angry this makes Graham or whatever the other people are. Every state needs to switch over to doing mail-in ballots by default, period. You can make it more secure that way and make it more consistent and allow people to show up at a polling place if they wish to, only if they haven't. And make sure that they tell them, yeah, if you're going to do mail-in ballot, we want you to do it as early as possible so that we can count them as they come in. But we're not going to tell anybody the outcome because it's none of your damn business until the election day. We're not going to let that affect your ability or desire to vote. And yes, it is confirmed that this year's election had more people voting than many of the others. I mean, our population's big, but this is crazy. And it's overwhelming our voting system. And I don't think the electronic voting system is an improvement. I'm sorry. I don't. If we squeezed it out over a week or more of early voting, because people have already decided how they're going to vote, so they can vote early. Everybody's undecided can spend the whole day waffling for the last day. And again, no, Wisconsin doesn't have more ballots than registered voters. They had a bunch of people register to vote after the time that person deliberately picked, because they looked as far back as they could to find the number of registered voters for Wisconsin. If it was more than the number of people, that'd be different. And I also should point out that you should be careful what glass house you're throwing at. At the time that tweet was posted, Trump was winning Wisconsin most likely. So again, stop screaming rigged election in 2016 when you've just won an election, and stop screaming don't count the vote when you're losing, only in areas you're losing. And again, if he brings 3 cases into the Supreme Court and argues 3 completely different arguments so he can try to tailor-make the results, they're going to take that under consideration and say, we will apply this judgment to all 3 states and all 3 court cases at the same time. And if you bring in 3 cases that contradict each other about a vote, you're demanding a special treatment for each case, for each state being gerrymandered after the fact. You're simply trying to invalidate votes that make it to where you don't win. And they will take that into consideration. And it doesn't matter if you put an appointee in there to try to mess with this. Okay? All right. And yes, the appointee he put on for the U.S. Postal Service really did try to slow down the mail, and it is obvious. And once he's out of office, he's a private citizen. He's not defensible. And no, nobody is going to be giving him a pardon after the fact. By the way, Trump doing that has probably affected his election results in near Maricopa County, because some people in the state are very angry about that shit because it made them all look like a bunch of hicks. Just saying. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.